Hey everyone, welcome to today's explainer. If you love music, home theater, or honestly just use a smartphone, you're relying on something working totally behind the scenes every single day, the audio amplifier. But if you've ever shopped for audio gear, you've probably hit a wall of alphabet soup. Class A, Class AB, Class D, it's super intimidating. Well, today we're going to decode those letters. We'll strip away the heavy engineering jargon and just look at how this incredible tech actually evolved. By the end of this, you'll know exactly what these mean, why they matter, and how they literally shape the sound you hear all around you.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our roadmap. We'll start with what audio amplifiers actually are, then move to Class A, pure but hot. Look at the Class AB compromise, jump into Class D, the cool revolution, and finally, we'll bust some persistent Class D myths.
All right, part one, what are audio amplifiers? Giving power to sound.
So let's start at square one. What actually is an audio amplifier? It's a term we toss around a lot, right? But at its core, it has one critical job. When you speak into a mic or play a track on your phone, the electrical signal generated is incredibly tiny. I mean microscopic. If you hooked that tiny signal directly up to a speaker, you wouldn't hear a thing. Why? Well, because a speaker needs to physically move. It has a cone that literally pushes air to create the sound waves that reach your ears. That tiny original signal just doesn't have the muscle to do that. Enter the amplifier. It grabs that microscopic signal, juices it up with electrical power from your wall or battery, and makes it strong enough to drive the speaker. Without it, pure silence.
Moving right along to part two, Class A, pure but hot, the audiophile's first choice. Now that we know the basics, let's look at the very first major category, the original purest design, Class A. It's the simplest, most direct transistor-based circuit out there. Because the circuit is basically left always on at full power, the sound is incredibly dynamic with almost zero distortion. It's basically musical perfection. But there's a huge catch, and this brilliantly illustrates the problem. Look at this power usage breakdown. At best, a Class A amp is only about 35% efficient. That means 65% of the electricity you pump into it doesn't make sound at all. It's just lost as heat. To put that into perspective, a 200-watt Class A amp consumes about 800 watts of continuous power. Running that in your living room is literally like leaving an 800-watt iron or a mixer grinder running non-stop. You need these massive, heavy metal heatsinks just to stop the thing from melting. It'll literally heat up your whole room. Because of those massive power requirements and huge heat sinks, Class A amps are incredibly expensive. Commercial units from legendary engineers like Nelson Pass can easily hit 20 lakh rupees. Crazy, right? But the sound is just so breathtaking that hobbyists still obsess over them. In fact, Nelson Pass released a famous DIY circuit called the Amp Camp amp. It only pushes out 5 watts, which is tiny, but the clarity is just pure magic. Another famous designer, Jean Haraga, made a design called Lee Monster. People will happily drop 35 to 50,000 rupees just on parts to build Lee Monster themselves, simply because that distortion-free Class A sound is completely unmatched.
Which brings us to part three, the Class AB compromise, finding the middle ground.
Let's be real for a second, we can't all have 800-watt space heaters in our living rooms just to play some tunes. Engineers had to find a fix. How do we get good sound without melting the house down? Well, first they tried Class B. It solved the heat issue nicely, jumping to about 70% efficiency by turning off parts of the circuit when they weren't needed. But it was kind of a failed experiment for high-end audio because it introduced this nasty thing called crossover distortion. It sounded pretty bad. So back to the drawing board they went, and boom, Class AB was born. As you can guess, it's a hybrid. It takes the gorgeous, low-distortion audio of Class A and mashes it up with the power efficiency of Class B. In the real world, Class AB became the absolute gold standard for decades. It hits a solid 60 to 70% efficiency. If you've had a home stereo in the last 30 years, it was almost definitely Class AB. You can even get DIY boards like the PCB4 or little IC chips like the LM386 that genuinely rival those pricey Class A setups. But it's still a compromise, you know? You're still losing about 30% of power is heat. A 700-watt Class AB amp, still blasting 300 watts of waste heat per hour. You still need big heat sinks and heavy copper transformers. That means Class AB is way too bulky for small portables. Try cramming one into a smartphone and it would drain your battery in minutes and probably burn your hand in the process. So that leads us perfectly into part 4. Class D, the cool revolution. a whole new way to amplify. Those limitations of Class AB bring us to the real climax of our story. We needed things smaller and more efficient, which sparked a totally different approach. Class D isn't just an upgrade to AB, it's a completely different beast entirely. So the crucial point is how it handles the signal, using something called pulse width modulation, or PWM. Instead of just making the original sound wave taller, Class D compares your audio to a super fast external triangular wave. By comparing the two, it actually chops your audio up into a series of high-speed, on and off square pulses. The amp then takes those simple square pulses and easily boosts their power massively. Then, and here's the magic trick, right before it hits your speaker, it passes through a low-pass filter. That filter smooths those blocky square pulses right back out into a beautiful, continuous analog sound wave. I know it sounds like a lot, but this switching method, an absolute game changer.
And here is exactly why Class D took over the world. Just look at this efficiency showdown. Class A sits way down at 35%. Class AB manages about 65%. But Class D, it routinely blasts past 90% efficiency. That means if you need 100 watts of sound, the amp might only pull 105 watts from the wall. Almost zero wasted heat. Because they run so cool, you barely need heat sinks. They can be incredibly tiny. This right here is the exact tech that lets your smartphone have a loudspeaker without instantly dying. And it's the same tech that lets a massive 600-watt home theater subwoofer shake your walls without catching fire.
All right, final section, part 5, Busting Class D Myths, the truth about modern sound. Now, if you lurk on online audio forums at all, you've definitely seen this stigma. Some old-school hobbyists swear up and down that Class D just sounds worse. The myth is that it's harsh, clinical, and nowhere near the warmth of Class A or AB. But here's the reality check. That opinion is stuck about 20 years in the past. Back when Class D first dropped, those low-pass filters, the magic part that turns the square pulses back into smooth music, they weren't great, and yeah, they caused some distortion. But today, modern advanced filters have completely solved that. The old distortion issues are practically non-existent. These days, Class D is top-tier, premium tech used by the most prestigious audio brands on Earth. Take HypeX. They're making modules that deliver some of the absolute cleanest, most transparent audio ever measured. Then you've got Ice Power, literally named because their amps run cool as ice. And we aren't talking budget gear here, folks. The American brand PS Audio uses Class D in their premium Stellar lineup, and those units will run you around 2 lakh rupees. The high-end audiophile world has totally embraced modern Class D. Now, what's really fascinating about this is just how insanely scalable Class D is. Because the chips are so easy to mass produce, you can hop online right now and buy a tiny DIY TPA3116 amplifier board for like 250 to 300 rupees. It fits in your hand and it sounds genuinely great. But on the exact opposite side of the universe, you've got luxury companies like Bel Canto pushing the absolute limits of fidelity with their Black EX amplifier. And that one? That'll cost you around 20 lakh rupees. It's a single technology that covers everything from pocket change DIY projects to massive luxury investments. So there you have it. We've gone from the beautiful, roasting hot purity of Class A through the really clever compromise of Class AB, all the way to the ultra-efficient, ice-cold powerhouse that is Class D. Kind of makes you look at your everyday electronics differently, right? Which brings me to a question I want to leave you with. The next time you turn up your TV, blast a song on your phone, or sit down at a high-end stereo, ask yourself, which amplifier class is quietly right behind the scenes powering your experience? Thanks so much for hanging out with me for today's explainer. Keep learning, keep listening, and I'll catch you next time.